So in today's video, I wanted to do a little bit of reading, while also catching up on one of our former first overall picks in the NHL Draft. You know from the title, you know from the thumbnail, but before we dive into the nasty comments about Owen Power, I wanted to go over his entire profile, talk about some of the numbers, talk about some of the advanced stats as well. Because Owen Power, as we all are familiar with, was a former first overall pick in the 2021 NHL Draft. Now, you could very well debate as to who should have been first overall in this season's worth of play. A lot of these players, I feel, are still trying to find their way and become established NHL guys. Of course, you have some that are already established, like Power, like Beniers, like Luke Hughes, etc., but a lot of these guys haven't started to reach their ceilings just yet. You're seeing some other guys rotate around in there. Cole Sillinger has had his go. Dylan Guenther has looked pretty impressive with the Arizona Coyotes whenever I watch him, but Owen Power was the guy at the very top of the draft. And for good reason, too. I mean, he's 6'6", 218, left-handed defenseman, and when Owen Power was playing at his best, he was somebody on the ice that you can't really identify, somebody that doesn't really exhibit any sort of play that you've seen before. When Owen Power is at his absolute best, he is a puck-rushing, absolute force of a machine who can carry the puck, control it, and create offense on a dime. The thing is, though, he's 6'6", 218. So he kind of has the authority to be able to command space on the ice. The difference is, though, between Owen Power and many other 6'6" defensemen that you're probably familiar with, is that Power isn't really physical. He wouldn't go out there and bulldoze guys. He doesn't toss guys out of the front of the net in his own zone. He is not a wrecking ball. He's more of a smooth skating, offensively minded guy. And that's been reflected in a lot of his point totals over the years. Even in his draft eligible season, he had 16 points in 26 games played for the Michigan Wolverines, which you could say isn't really like the most amazing point production metric, especially for a first overall guy. But the package, what you're getting in Owen Power, the promise of what he could be, a potential minutes-eating, top-2, puck-rushing defenseman who happens to be 6'6", there was a lot of hype here, and it's why he went first. Now, we all recognize that Power didn't play in the NHL right away. He played another season with Michigan before heading over to Buffalo. He was a point per game with the Wolverines in this season, which was a big step up. Last season, which was his first full NHL campaign, Owen Power had 35 points in 79 games played. This season, his production has declined a little bit to 32 points in 74 games, on pace for about 33 in a 76-game sample. Now, you can look at the numbers, you could talk about the sophomore slump, you could say this, you could say that, but at the end of the day, if you go over to the Buffalo Sabres advanced stats, this is all from moneypuck.com, and you compare Owen Power to a lot of the other defensemen, you'll see that he has been one of the top guys when it comes to being able to create offense. This is the chart of expected goals versus goals between Buffalo Sabres defensemen who have played a minimum of 20 games, and you can see that Power is indeed above the mean. He is in the same territory, or I guess you could say the same quadrant as Bowen Byram and Rasmus Dahlin, although Dahlin and Byram are both getting more goals and more expected goals than Power. He still is going out there, though, and outproducing guys like Bryson, Samuelsson, Yoki Haru, and a few others, which shouldn't be all too surprising considering his role with the team. Now, the reason we're making this video and the reason we're talking about Power is because of one of the latest episodes of the Spittin' Chicklets podcast. Take a look at this post made on the Our Buffalo Sabres subreddit talking about what Paul Bissonnette went out there and said about Owen Power on the 491st episode of the show. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go ahead and read the rest of Age of the Expanding Man's post and the comment section, but let's go out there and dive into this. Starting at about the 2:08-minute mark of the 491st Spittin' Chicklets podcast episode, they start talking about the Wings and Sabres game. And they start by comparing Moritz Seider to Owen Power. Now, okay, before we even dive into the rest of the comments here, Moritz Seider is a complete other beast of a human being. Like, you talk about everything that Owen Power lacks as a big defenseman, Mo Seider's got it. He blocks a ton of shots, he delivers a lot of hits, he is not afraid to get physical, he is a bully out there on the ice. Total opposite from what Owen Power has been able to do. And sure, you could talk about point production. You can say that Power and Seider may not have the same point projection long term. It wouldn't surprise me if at one point Owen Power starts outproducing Moritz Seider. It hasn't happened yet, but I mean, look, this is sort of the profile that you're getting with these guys. But the difference between Seider and Power is pretty significant, and that's what Bissonnette goes out there and talks about. I don't know if Owen Power's top-end offense offsets the fact that maybe he doesn't need to be as aggressive and play as hard as a Moritz Seider across the ice, and I know you have to play your game. Now, they have Bowen Byram, so what is Owen Power? Why the F are you handing over these types of contracts? If you're telling me after watching the type of season that Owen Power had, would you sign him for that same effing deal? No, I'd sign him to a bridge deal at 2 years at $5 million a year. This isn't an opportunity to crap on Owen Power. He's a fine skater, he lacks some defensive awareness, he doesn't protect the house as good as a Mo Seider does. He doesn't have that physical element to his game. Why would you pay somebody $8 million just to maybe doing what he's doing now? I would say a huge element going into next season on the fact that maybe they could potentially make the playoffs and end this drought is the evolution of Owen Power. If he can take that next step, now all of a sudden your top four is as good as anybody in the East and you have some weapons up front. So essentially, Bisnasty's argument here is that because Owen Power doesn't really rough the house up as much as a Mo Seider does, is it really worth it to be having Owen Power on the contract that he's on? Right now, he's on his ELC, but he has signed an extension which is worth $8.35 million a year starting next season, which takes him until 2030-2031. Extremely long-term deal. The question here is, because Owen Power isn't really like one of the absolute peak guys offensively, is he really worth that money when he's not providing any defensive stability as well? Now, some of the comments go out there and reply to this idea. I 100% agree. Owen Power needs to play more to his size. He is not physical enough for being as big as he is. Defensemen take time though, and he is the least of our problems on this team. It's not really a thought in my mind. Burger Feasts goes out there and replies, my worry isn't that Owen Power can't learn to play physical. It's that Don Granato isn't trying to get that out of him and is fine with Power skating around like he's 5'10". Nathan Gerbe was more physical. And if you remember Nathan Gerbe, I'm pretty sure that guy was my height. 5'3", something like that. I actually am curious. Let's go out there and go on a little aside about that. Here we go. Nathan Gerbe and his overall profile. What was he? Yeah, he was 5'4". Okay, so 3 centimeters taller than I was. Interesting. I feel like Power is still playing like he did in college, where you cannot be very physical on defense. The question is whether he can unlearn that. Not physical enough is an understatement. That's what concerns me. To be a large NHL defenseman playing pretty significant minutes and only having 71 hits in 160 games is troubling. You almost have to be purposefully avoiding contact to do that. And then there are some other comments going out there saying, yeah, thank goodness Biz is not our GM because we wouldn't be able to afford Owen Power at 2 years at $5 million, and Power will be a stud by that point too. Let's see how the Wings pay Seider too before we use a player comparison like this. Byram is the one who is in line for a shorter contract unless he has an incredible full season next year. So I ultimately wanted to make this video because I wanted to bring this entire idea up. There are comments agreeing, disagreeing, and just kind of calling Biz out, you know, saying, hey, what do you have on our guy that justifies you calling him out in this way, comparing him to Mo Seider, who also had a sophomore slump? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're a Buffalo Sabres fan, what are your opinions on this? The idea that Owen Power may not currently be worth the contract because he doesn't play physical enough and his offense is a little bit too, let's just say, jaded within the system. You've got Byram, you've got Dahlin. Do you really need a guy like Owen Power to be playing the same style? And because Power doesn't play physically, is he really worth that $8.35 million? Now, I get it, he's 21 years old, so by the time he's 24, 25, maybe that contract is a huge steal, who really knows? But for now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Paul Bissonnette calling out Owen Power on the Spit and Chicklets podcast. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go ahead and read this post and some of the other comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.